ask them to explain what they're actually doing with AI. What are you actually doing?
His AI agent has a name. His name is Scott. So Scott is the agent that's calling, even though Scott is an AI. They've had consumers reach out and ask if they were going to be able to meet Scott.
Wow.
And Scott's the AI that they did not know was an AI. There's one thing that no matter how much you try, you cannot create more of, and that's time. When you leverage AI, the sky is the limit. If you don't call the prospect within 5 minutes, they're already gone. Well, that timeline's shortened due to AI, where you have voice agents that are reaching out within 3 or 4 seconds of a lead coming in. AI is meant to be a tool, not a replacement.
It's going to be almost everywhere. How are we going to start filtering this stuff? Welcome back to another episode of the Better Decisions podcast. My name is David Siddons, and I'm here today with Jonathan Lickstein, who is the president of the Broward and Palm Beach Association of Realtors.
Thank you, David, for having me. Excited to be here. Love doing podcasts.
Thank you. And tell the audience a little bit about what it is that you do and what you're doing right now. Start off with AI and what's going on.
Okay, so the consumer has changed so much over the history of real estate. I mean, you talk about organized real estate that started 100 years ago. And how things have changed. Historically, the real estate agent was the keeper of the data, and that's not the case anymore. You can access property information, details about the history of a property, what's available in the marketplace, on the internet, anywhere in the palm of your hand, as it is today. So what AI is doing for real estate agents is creating this incredible efficiency when consumers and the public are used to the on-demand lifestyle. They're used to opening Netflix and watching a movie right now, any movie they could possibly want, or streaming or binging a show that's been on for years, and they can watch it right now instead of going to Blockbuster. Yeah. That's how our world has changed. And that's no different in real estate. People have a question, they want it answered now. They want access to the data and the information at their fingertips. And there's one thing that no matter how much you try, you cannot create more of, and that's time. So what AI allows us to do, no matter what your role is in this industry, in this profession, whether you're on the office staff compliance side, you're training and educating agents, or if you're a practitioner out there every single day, AI can streamline your time and not give you more of it, but alleviate some of the obligations you have to get things into people's hands faster and allow you to do what you do best, which is this one-to-one conversation, the building of a relationship. So how am I leveraging AI? Many different angles. Because I work on the operations side of the brokerage, I deal a lot with the compliance and the troubles that you have as a quote unquote small business that's trying to scale. And scalability is a struggle due to human assets, human elements that you have. You can only do so much. But when you leverage AI, the sky is the limit. We went from 4 compliance people reviewing documentation with 1,500 real estate agents working with us to the same exact compliance staff, now with close to 5,000 agents, with obviously a much higher dominating source of documents that you have to get through in a timely manner. AI has simplified all of that for us by programming it in a way where read this, do that, read this, do that. The age-old if this, then that kind of formula. And that has streamlined all of it where you can get a document approved in a second, rather than waiting 1 to 2 business days for a compliance person to sit there and click the button. But on the agent side, it's creating massive efficiencies. You can present yourself in a professional manner. You can communicate at such a higher level than you would just naturally. You can take that speed to lead, which I think Realtor.com said, if you don't call the prospect within 5 minutes, they're already gone. Well, that timeline's shortened due to AI, where you have voice agents that are reaching out within 3 or 4 seconds of a lead coming in. That ability to capture goes far beyond the human capability, and AI gives us the capability to do all of that. I think that was a really long answer to your question, but
well, it's spawning a lot of questions now, because in my head, running a operation, the brokerage model's kind of changed, and you're dealing obviously with talking about compliance issues and other things like that. And then you're talking about the process of agents actually being able to reach out to clients as they come through, as they register, leads as they hit the system, coming from people inquiring about certain properties. Certainly in terms of what we might consider the more mundane tasks, I can see that becoming extremely useful. The area that really interests me as a agent to client, I guess, individual, someone who's actually on the ground dealing with this and dealing with the clients every day, is, are we using it? Are you seeing it being used correctly? How much do we have to be aware of these actual tools? What are the tools we can actually use to be customer forward, customer facing? Because I think that back end stuff, yes, great. We can do a lot of those automations things, kind of like the accounting and kind of like the kind of the boring, mundane stuff. But it's always been a person-to-person kind of relationship business. Do you see agents, because you've got 5,000 agents, to be clear, you're running a brokerage house. Mm-hmm. And that brokerage model is now kind of shifting a little bit. Are you seeing your agents actually using AI effectively and properly?
Some yes and some no. I mean, anytime there's a new product or technology that comes into the marketplace, it's the shiny new object, right? Mm-hmm. Some will take advantage of it and some won't. You think about when TikTok came out, how many people jumped on and where they are now because they started at that time compared to people who are jumping on now. And they're way behind the 8 ball when it comes to influencing or garnering some type of audience. AI is the same exact thing. You have people that have adopted it right away and started tinkering around or programming it into their SOP for how they run their business. Those people are doing really well with it. So I have a large team, and I like to reference him a lot because I learned a lot of my AI stuff early on from him. And he's programmed it in where you are only one person. That speed to lead is really, really important. But it's not about trying to build the relationship through an AI agent. It's really streamlining. They can get a call right now because this is when they asked. And you have that AI agent that reaches out, and this is with no programming. It's an out of the box. There's a couple startup companies that are doing this really, really well. They integrate with your CRM, contact the prospect, and have an initial conversation with the intent of, are you ready to speak with David now? And if you're ready to speak with David now, live transfer comes right over to you, that machine to human handoff, and you can build the relationship from there. But if they're not ready to have that conversation, it's incredible how it's evolved where it can have that one-to-one conversation and you probably don't know it's an AI. It is incredible. And every piece of information it's extracting from that conversation is being notated in your CRM and setting up an automated follow-up phone call for you to then reach out, leveraging that information. When I went through that demo with each of these companies, I was blown away. I'm trying to break it. I'm trying to figure out how this is an AI or where a consumer is going to get caught up. And I couldn't find it.
Do you think it's actually working? I mean, do you actually see that the AI systems are calling these individuals and they are responding positively, favorably, and enabling it to actually help create a relationship?
Here's a great example. So that team I was mentioning, his AI agent has a name. His name is Scott. So Scott is the agent that's calling, even though Scott is an AI. They've had consumers reach out and ask if they were going to be able to meet Scott.
Wow.
And Scott's the AI that they did not know was an AI.
So this kind of leads a little early on in the conversation that I was going to have, but it kind of leads down this potential of, I won't say deception, but where do you see it being used correctly, ethically, and where can it go wrong? Because I can imagine there's a whole lot of people who can be, if you wanted to be nefarious about this and you were that way inclined, if you were somewhat sociopathic and you wanted to create this system, you could. Isn't that troubling? Isn't that a potential problem?
It is. I mean, you think about movies that we saw 15 years ago and they were deep fake pictures, deep fake videos, all of these things kind of deceiving a human as to what is real and what is not real. And we're in that world right now. We are. You can't believe something that you see. You have to verify.
Yeah.
And that was a big struggle with ChatGPT when it first came on the scene. People were having conversations with it and blindly trusting the data that came out of it.
Yeah. I want to get into the data conversation because that's another arm. The first thing before we do that is this human relationship, I call it human relationship, AI to human relationship. Mm-hmm. But when you think you're having an authentic relationship, you're assuming that you're dealing with empathy, you're dealing with sympathy, you're dealing with understanding. And these individuals that you might be talking to, maybe a seller, it's all the money they have in the world. It's all the savings that they have. At what point do you have to go, okay, it's not okay for you to start having an AI talk to this individual about whether it's the right time to sell their home. Because I try to create a business which is very customer focused. It's better decisions for the customer, not for you. And I think a lot of the association with our industry is, well, what does your realtor want? Well, your realtor wants to sell you a house because they want to make a commission, or they want you to sell your house or condo because they want to make a commission. Not necessarily what's right for you, which is where the old, it's always a good time. It's always a good time to buy. It's always a good time to sell goes. When you get into this, obviously at the high level, I see very savvy clients and they know very quickly the right questions to ask. But if the system starts to get good at knowing the right questions to answer, then you lead yourselves down there. So how do you manage your agents to be aware to handle the technology responsibly and how to do it? What's the right way of doing it? If you were to frame, if I was an agent, how would you frame it to me? This is the right way to go around doing this.
In my personal opinion,
yeah,
relationships are what drives transactions. And if you are handling that relationship in the right way, which is what is in best interest of that consumer, then you're going about it the right way. AI is meant to be a tool, not a replacement.
Yeah.
It's meant to be a tool to let you get into a conversation with somebody else and build a relationship. It will never replace that. So if I'm guiding somebody to do that, it's set your guardrails. Where does it stop? Where do you take over? If your AI voice agent is intended to start a conversation for you, then leave it there. Don't have it giving advice.
Yeah.
And you program all of that out and set the guardrails.
Yeah.
When you're working with a third-party company, they've already set those guardrails for you. But if you're going into a new venture and you're setting up your own personality inside that AI agent, you do have to be careful because it can go way far beyond and go down unethical practices or ask questions it's not authorized.
I think they even had ChatGPT. It would lie. It learned how to lie in certain situations in order to protect itself. Mm-hmm. There is certain, it's scary. It's a very kind of like almost a Hollywood movie type environment where it will work according to the input that it's being given. So getting into the conversation about how it's going to communicate, we were having this conversation slightly before cameras started rolling, and both of us, when we are asking, for example, ChatGPT to help, the advanced version now, and obviously you mentioned Gamma, which will go into the list of different tools and technologies you can all, play with and use. As human beings, we constantly are trying to navigate the right answers. We constantly make mistakes and we constantly learn from our mistakes. If we don't do trial and error sometimes, if we don't do our own hard work, our own preparation, if you want to call it that, before we get into AI conversations, or having AI answer questions for us. If I want you to represent me and go out there into the market, I want you to know everything about me before you do, because how can you represent me and be a good representation of what I believe and what I know and what I understand, my code of ethics and my beliefs. I have a set of beliefs, that rules I have, if you want to call it that, for success and failure in real estate. Or from an analytical level when I'm helping buyers and sellers. And I will say to sellers all the time, buyers actually, all the time, people say, well, what condo should I buy? What new construction? A lot of it is a new construction conversation. And I will say, okay, these are the rules for a successful condo project. These are the rules for an unsuccessful condo project. And I won't break my rules. And I will teach my clients the rules that I have. And then from there, we will work together as we explore and analyze different product to understand what we need to strike from the list and what we need to leave to say, all right, now we can focus on these and then drill deeper. I guess AI is no different.
It's not. You only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. And AI can be that critical thinking assistant that follows you around and helps you formulate those concepts. So before you just go in and hammer away like you're searching Google inside of ChatGPT, you want to formulate the right question.
Yeah.
And they've resolved a lot of this through the language model releases in progression, right, as it's evolved as a product. But early on, I had a prompt I would use. It's 3 paragraphs long. I would use every single time I went in. I'm going to ask you a question. Ask me 5 questions for us to formulate an ultimate prompt. Once we're done, I'll tell you I'm finished, quote unquote. And then I want you to take that prompt and answer my question.
Yeah.
So you'd ask your initial question and it would ask you qualifying questions back, almost like a very diligent assistant sitting next to you. And you say, go create me a marketing campaign. Okay, hold on a second. Let me ask you a few questions about that campaign and what you'd like to accomplish. Who are you trying to reach? What are you aiming to gain out of this? Where is it going to be utilized? And how do you want people to respond to you? That was an example of a few questions. And as you're just bullet point answering them, it formulates a prompt, taking all of that information you've given back to it now into a comprehensive question. And also, how do you want to receive your result from me? It could be a Word document, a PDF document, an explanation, bullet points, paragraph format, et cetera, et cetera. And that will help you formulate that question that would have been a one-liner to start, and you don't know how it's going to end up, into a very detailed presentation of exactly what you were looking for. And we could all use somebody like that in our life.
Absolutely. You compound problems. You will go down a further rabbit hole of mistakes. Done right, it will take you to the moon.
Agreed.
So I think in both directions, you're going to be really, really careful. You are now super conscientious and conscious about training agents correctly to be responsible and understand the right questions to ask.
Well, let me hold you right there for 1 second. So there are people who understand technology and integrations and will take it to the 9th level, right?
Yeah.
To the 9th degree. But there are others who are just so fearful of technology and fearful of putting information into some of these AI platforms that they won't even embrace it. They won't even try.
Yeah.
So a big part of my efforts is really just getting some general acceptance. We were speaking at that Master Brokers Forum. Those are all agents who have been in the business. They're top producers. They've been around for 10 plus years, 15 plus years in the industry, and they don't understand it at all because they've been so focused on relationships and networks through the history of their business.
Yeah.
But this is the new age that's here. And agents who are leveraging things like this are more resourceful for their consumers. They're more resourceful for themselves in their business and the time that they can put forth into servicing a consumer, going down hunting for that home, or being at the open house, being at the inspection, instead of sitting on a computer with the mundane tasks that we talked about replacing.
I love the aspect of being able to understand the consumer better rather than manipulate the consumer. Because I think that people can listen to this and go, you know what? I feel like I'm likely to get manipulated by someone using these tools and technologies. And in fact, what we really want to do is we want to push the narrative that it will help you understand the consumer. And I'll give you an example by what I mean. I made a list of all the different things that you can use. Some of them are like the boring, mundane tasks. Other ones help you with your CMA system, answering emails, content creation. I use an AI voice in my videos that allows me to actually speak in different languages. And then I can use that video and I can put it out through different markets. The area that fascinates me the most is none of the above. The area that fascinates me the most, by far, is the ability to analyze a market accurately and give a far more precise understanding of what are people's key concerns, what are the right questions to ask so that we can give the right answers that people want. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, really get into a granular level of human behavioral understanding. So we're ironically using AI to understand human beings better.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you're dealing in the luxury marketplace. You're not dealing with the masses. Every person is distinctly different. And finding out what ticks or what resonates with them. This is something I took away from your conversation. I've historically just gone into ChatGPT, thrown in a couple social profiles and said, I'm going to meet with this person about this. Yeah. What would make them resonate or connect with me? What are some topics I can bring up to build a rapport with them and allow me to gain some trust as we go down this pathway? But I learned from you a third-party product that's leveraging AI, and I started playing with since our conversation, and I've blown away. It's so much deeper and less legwork for me to get that done.
Well, there's two ways I look at this. Two ways I use it. If I'm trying to understand a consumer, I have two types of people I'm trying to understand. Number one, the buyer. What is it the buyer wants? What is it that they need? What's their profile? I don't want to start stalking them and like, okay, let me look at, their kids and where they live right now and what they do and their job and how much money they can do. But if I can just have it tell me a little bit more about this human being, and it can then explain what it knows and why it knows that, then it will help me enable to have the conversation with the customer and say, you're Mr. Buyer, and I'll say, okay, so I understand that you work for this company and this is your history and da-da-da. Would it be fair to say that these things are really important to you? You know, if you want a better answer, come up with a better question. I have the better question. Now I get to answer the customer directly and we get to bond. Because I'm not going to do this asking it through an email. I'm not going to do it through a blind situation where it's not emotional. I'm going to do it face to face.
Right.
That's the first thing that I see it used for. The second thing is when I'm protecting my seller and I know I've got another buyer on the other side. I'm dealing with a negotiation on a house. Seller wants a certain price. Buyer doesn't want to pay it. Buyer wants to lowball. I keep being told he's a real buyer, he's a real buyer, he's a real buyer. Then we get into it. If I research and find out the guy's just sold his company for $500 million and, you know, there are other variables, it will make me think, hold on a minute, this guy actually can pay the number. It's a game for him. He just wants to win. So I can start to understand that. I can start to profile them because I'm playing chess. I'm helping the seller play chess and I'm trying to understand what moves this individual might likely make. Are they an aggressive individual? Are they a conservative individual? Do they have the money? Maybe they don't. Maybe they're over leveraged. I don't know. But these are the things that, you know, I can see us as we evolve becoming better negotiators.
Oh, for sure. It's going to help you attack that negotiation in a different way. Yeah. And it might not be as deep as they just sold their company XYZ. It might give you more of these people are very data focused. They will drive off of numbers rather than emotions, which in residential real estate, we know emotions drive a lot of things. Yeah. But if you can go back and know somebody is data oriented, provide your negotiation counter with some data behind it that empowers that agent to share it, that becomes better in your side. When it comes to
I generally deal with that. If this is a very generalized observation, but if I'm in a negotiation process and I realize that the guy on the other side is in finance, maybe he's in the hedge fund world or private equity, it's very likely that the language that he speaks every day is a language of numbers.
Right.
He's less on the emotional side and he's more on the analytical side.
Not that we're stereotyping.
Not that I'm stereotyping, but I'm stereotyping. But, you know, I can then say, all right, if I believe that you should be paying a certain price for a certain product, then I'm going to provide you with the right data that I believe will help you make a better decision. Exactly. Always. And if I can provide that to them and I can spend time doing that, I believe that that data will not be, you know, ignored. It will be appreciated and it will then maybe move their decision from one way to another.
And not only does it help you in that conversation, but let's say you do come to terms in that negotiation and you continue on forward. That helps you address every step along the way, whether it's an inspection issue, an appraisal or collateral issue, or you're getting all the way through. You know what makes them tick and you understand how you can navigate this to serve your seller in a better way.
Yeah, 100%. Talk us through some of the tools, because you mentioned a lot, when we did the Brokers Forum, you mentioned a lot of like really cool tools. And I'm sure a lot of people, the people who are watching this who are probably realtors, and even the consumers, I guess, are going to say, all right, what are the right tools that realtors should be using in AI? And how do they make the difference?
So it's really a personal
easy
decision.
Question.
It's super easy, right? Very short answer. It really depends on that individual person. And that's one of the beautiful things about real estate is you can put literally the same project, the same product, and the same method in front of 230,000 realtors in Florida. And none of them will do it the same way. It allows differentiation of brand, differentiation of business methods. It's incredible. So tools that I'm using. Number one for me is ChatGPT. Period. Spend the money, use the plus version. It's $20 a month. It is the best $20 you'll spend on your business any month in a given year. Not even close. Most of what I focus on is content creation and not strictly for social media. That's what we think when we think content creation. For me, it's more about putting something easily understandable in a person's hands. If you can deliver a message and get them to comprehend what you're communicating without having to sit down one-on-one and explain it to them, taking all this knowledge in our head and transplanting it into the other person. So I will take a conversation with ChatGPT, format it into bullet point notes, and either create a single page, 2-page, or a full presentation that can be shared with a consumer or an agent on what the offering is or what the valuation is or what the steps are that they should be following into a clear, understandable format. We tend to complicate things too much. And in buying a home, it is complicated, but it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
If you can give someone the understanding of the steps they're going to go through and then walk them through those steps as the professional that's trusted, things are a lot easier along the way. There's a method of understanding. There is a point where a consumer is able to build that relationship with you and trust you because you've laid out the pathway. You've said, we're going from this office to that restaurant. You're going to go left here, right there, left there, cross the street light, park on the right. You know where you're going. It's easier to cross through those steps along the way. Real estate is very much similar. You're going to go through this process, then this step, looking at homes, making offers, inspections, loan applications, all of that stuff, that they don't feel lost or blindsided. Whether it's an investment property or a residential property, it's all the same.
Yeah.
If you can make that process simple for them.
One of the big mistakes that I see in the industry, and I see it, I'm very lucky that I have a very well-structured team. I like to think that arguably I may have stumbled across the best structure for a real estate team that could possibly exist. And what we do is we stay in our lanes, we compartmentalize. We have an operations director, we have an operations department. So the day-to-day operations of the business are running properly. When we get into purchases, inspections, appraisals, and all these other things, I have a legal department. I have them handle all the contracts and make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and we don't miss a trick and we never make a mistake on a contract. Safety and security is a big part of the business, feeling like someone's got you. I mean, it's a huge amount of money you're spending. It's the biggest decision of your life. And yet you've got someone literally like, juggling, riding around on a unicycle, juggling, and they're like, yeah, I got you. And you're like, no, it looks like you're going to drop a ball any second. And they probably do. That's not a good professional to be working with.
It's very important if you're not part of a team, you're an individual practitioner. It's important for you to align yourself with teammates to be in the lineup with you.
Yeah.
Have your transaction coordinator, your inspection company, your lender, all of which are kind of lockstep with each other, where you're not managing each individual step, but you're overseeing the others who are.
Yeah.
So an individual practitioner can be kind of an unofficial team of one, where they have all of these third-party partners that are navigating the pathway with them. Financial planner, lender, title company, inspector, all of these pieces along the way. Hopefully you're working with a title company that has an attorney, so you don't need your own legal department.
Yeah.
But there's pieces along the way like this where you don't have to be the juggler, but human nature, people are short-sighted and, lack of a better term, they're cheap. They don't want to spend the money to create the experience for the consumer, which is where it all starts. So I think the opportunity's been there, but it does get a little bit easier when you leverage things like AI for some of these steps. Not all of them, some of them.
Yeah, my feeling is that it won't help you do your job better, but it will help you scale better.
Scalability is the number one solution with AI.
And that, to me, is why I've managed to scale a group, and I will continue to scale it, but it's done very curatedly and very carefully, that those territory managers know exactly what they're doing. What I do feel is that sometimes, because we can do more things, it's proven that multitasking actually doesn't work. It's not a thing. What you're doing is you are monotasking, you're flipping from task to task. You're not doing two things at once. You're actually doing individually tasks, but you keep breaking it into chunks. And so you end up doing things kind of badly. And I see that with even AI, there's an inclination to kind of rush through or completely automate. And I think if a consumer was to be aware, and if I was to be bold to say, I'm an agent, I'm using AI. To some people, they think he's just he or she, or even in the agent's head, I can automate everything. Everything's automated. If I'm a consumer, I don't think so. And I think I would be immensely nervous if an individual said, yeah, everything's being automated. I'm like, what, you mean nobody's looking over someone's shoulder on this? Because if the input at the beginning isn't right, the problem compounds. It goes one way or the other.
And you hit one error and it is catastrophic for a human being's life.
Exactly. And typically you might catch these things because it's a slower moving train. You have time to reflect.
But that's a good thing in my eyes, that it can't all be automated. there is a human element that goes with this. There was a headline that was published through social media about a month ago, said AI agent in Portugal sells 100 million in real estate. That's a sexy headline.
Yeah, I think that's traveled around the internet. What was that about?
So it's an agent that was leveraging an AI agent. So when you hear real estate agent and you hear AI agent, you think it's an artificial intelligent real estate agent, but it was an AI empowered real estate agent. The human element was still there. They were leveraging AI agents for chat, nurture, follow up, getting information on each step along the way in the process to take all of that away from the individual agent with pre-programmed information. So they took a lot of the mundane tasks of emailing, texting back and forth, updating status of files, things like that, and they automated that portion. But what never changed was the relationship. You still had somebody going around looking at homes. You still had somebody assessing whether it was a positive or negative investment for that consumer. So the human element never left. And I bet we could publish 10 of those articles in South Florida alone with somebody leveraging AI who's done that much business. Just the headline was very deceiving.
I think there is no such thing as a free lunch. And I think that there's ideas that people go out there, especially marketed through the world.
There are free lunches, but not where you want to go. There are free lunches,
but yeah, exactly. You don't want to taste that food. I definitely feel like when you go online, and this is just an observation of the society that we live in, there's every video blasted out there that how to become a millionaire, how to make $250,000 in the next month. From zero to that, this is how I did it. This is how you do it. This is how you make a quick buck. And more often than not, it all revolves around one big fundamental mistake that they choose to omit. There's one big variable that's like, it works if everything else aligns. And then I think people jump on that and they believe it. And the concerns that we see now is that people will start to throw out the word, I'm an AI integrated agent. I'm very AI savvy.
You hear it all the time.
But are they? Are they actually? And I would actually challenge anyone. If you are a buyer or seller out there and you're hiring an agent, and I've written out a list. I did a video that's titled, was it 7 or 10 things? Like 7 things to ask your realtor before you hire them. 7 things to never say to your realtor when you're interviewing them. And I feel like with AI, there should be, this is like number 8. Number 8, ask them to explain what they're actually doing with AI.
I love that question.
Like, what are you actually doing?
I love that question. What would I say if you were a seller?
Yeah, I want to know. What would you say?
I'm creating more content in a faster manner so I can be focused on knowing and showing your property, selling it to somebody instead of spending my time out there marketing. I can create content faster than anybody else in the marketplace and make your home exposed to more people than anybody else can reach in the digital marketplace that we live in right now. If you're going to buy a home, you're going to go on the internet. I'm going to be findable on the internet because of how I'm leveraging AI compared to somebody who's going to be your local realtor down the street.
So what are the questions that Google most asks, or what are the questions that people ask that has the highest amount of traffic or search traffic to do with, in my case, Miami real estate or South Florida real estate, because we also do Broward and Palm Beach, just to be clear. So we're not just Miami. And when we go into those questions now, what I realize is that with AI, if you want a better answer, come up with a better question. Now I'm able to evolve the question. It's not just one question, the end, full stop, give an answer, and then off you go. Now we can kind of curate that answer, and I can dig into it a little bit more deeply. Now give me not just the article that I'm going to write that's going to get the most number of clicks, but that's going to actually have people take action. What's the one that's currently most important? Everybody asks me the same question. Everybody asks me the same question every day.
How's the market?
How's the market? Yeah, thank you. How's the market? And that we're doing a podcast where I'm going to be talking about the state of the market next week. What they really mean is different for everybody. And everybody has a different question. And ultimately, that's okay, because the right answer is not the same for everybody. Everybody is going to get a different answer because people are living in different places and different demographics with different incomes and different motivations. Some are investors, some are end users, some are retirees, some are, empty nesters.
Especially in South Florida.
Especially in South Florida. You've got young families, you've got old families, you've got everything. And what they're all trying to make is a better decision. And so when we go through this, I'm trying to think, how can I help these people make better decisions? How can I honestly put them forward and answer their questions?
That's a great point. It's a great point. It's that you're not going to know the question the first time you go in there. Because the reason you go in is to answer a question. But there's so much more to that in order to get a full comprehensive response and information that you can actually leverage and take out elsewhere, either to help a consumer, help an agent on your team, or just accomplish a task in the right way. It's not about checking the box. It's about doing it correctly.
So if we are going to use ChatGPT or other tools, Gamma, you mentioned Gamma actually.
Love Gamma.
There's another one. We're going to get into Gamma in a second. How would you give someone like a little mini tutorial right now? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you want to figure out what's the right question to ask, how would you sit down? I'm trying to figure out my market. I'm in, let's say, give me a neighborhood that you're.
I'm just going to go home office, Pompano Beach.
Okay. Pompano Beach.
Actually, let's go home, Boca Raton.
Okay. I'm in Boca. I'm an agent in Boca. I'm really trying to be a good agent. I'm trying to be the best agent I can be, and I'm trying to be seen in the market as an expert. What would you tell me that I should start doing to get to the right question? What's the process?
So what's really interesting is with the evolution of ChatGPT, you don't really have to structure yourself this much, but start with clarifications, right? I want you to be X. It's who, what, and how. Those are the three questions that you have to answer in your prompt that you're asking to get a comprehensive response. So who do I want you to be, ChatGPT? I want you to be my real estate coach. What? I am starting off in this industry. I am located in Boca Raton, and I'm looking to work with buyers and sellers in my local marketplace. How? How can I build relationships, create a network, and brand myself from digital, personal, and relationships to create a business model for myself? And see what it comes back with. It's going to give you ideas for marketing yourself digitally, in person, and building a network, and tell you steps to go through. Now, your initial response is not going to be the right one. It's going to be very surface level. Okay? Very simple. Go into more detail.
Yeah.
Give me step-by-step instructions. Speak to me like I'm a fifth grader, and let it give you a literal map of where you need to go. I think that's one of the beautiful things.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when you start to read it, and I think this is where the human involvement has to take place, once you get the answers, you can't do the worst thing from what you're telling me is you cannot ask it a question, take that big answer, dump it online, or use that as your blueprint. It's like a conversation.
An evolution.
You've
Just
got to
like you're
let it
sitting there.
evolve.
You're sitting there with whoever you want it to be. In this case, it was the real estate coach. Act like my broker. Act like a nationally recognized trainer. And what's beautiful is it leverages anything that's publicly available on the internet. And how many of these real estate coach and mentors put their stuff on the internet?
Yeah.
Every single one of them. It's leveraging transcripts from YouTube and videos that are published out in the public, websites, articles, blogs, complete step-by-step A to Z guides from top producing agents like yourself that have put information out there. All of that information can be leveraged and created to coach and mentor other agents through things like ChatGPT. Now, the big differentiator in real estate is not knowing what to do. It's taking action. It's doing it.
Yeah.
So as I said before, if you give 230,000 realtors in Florida the same exact tools, instructions, and products, they're all going to do it differently. I bet 85% of them don't do anything at all.
And then you've got to have the platform to put it out on.
Correct.
Because that's what I always say. My group is really a media company. And I say, yeah, you could be David Siddons if you want to, but it's going to take you 15 years and 2,000 articles and 1,000 videos and a lot of content, a lot of work to get there. Now, you can certainly start to do it faster, and I think we're going to start to see people pump out more and more information, more and more opinions.
Well, you saw that with the age of YouTube and social media. Anybody can be an influencer at any moment. So there's no fast track. There's no shortcut. You still need to do the work, but the steps of creating that stuff to go out to the public can happen faster.
Well, doesn't that lead, I'm just going down the rabbit hole of problems here.
I don't want to discount the fact of you can obtain the information. Here's an example. I had a 300-page market report assessment of the Florida Keys yesterday.
Okay.
I'm not reading through 300 pages.
Who made that?
I don't have time. I can't disclose.
Okay.
It wasn't you.
No, it wasn't. It was not me. That's for sure.
It's another brokerage.
But you think that was a real report that they actually time curated?
Absolutely was from market statistics, direct addresses, a lot of information put in there.
Okay.
And I won't mention it because I'm not the biggest fan. Yeah. But the data was really good. But am I going to sit there and read through 300 pages to understand that market? I'm not. So I uploaded that 300 pages to ChatGPT and I said, give me the high points for this market area specifically. Be detailed with property references, opportunities that are available in the marketplace, both for potential buyers and for potential sellers, whether now 6 months or 12 months from now will create a better opportunity. And it gave me 3 paragraphs that I'm not using to create content, but I'm using to leverage and create knowledge for myself based on 300 pages down to 3 paragraphs. I didn't have to find the section about the specific marketplace I was looking for in the greater scheme of things. I used AI to shorten all of that for you.
Which I think it's really the right way of using it. That is the right way of using it. I believe that you as a professional going into that whole analytical world, there are many really, really good sources of information. But I believe you need to understand where they come from, qualify that data, take time to actually process it. Don't read the whole thing. I'm not going to read the 300-page report. No. But if you believe, okay, this data is accurate, it looks accurate, and I believe it's accurate, and I see where it's coming from, it will allow you to pull and make far more, and I believe now my reports will become far more complete, far more systematically complete than I ever could have made them before, because now I'm able to pull data sources from many different reliable areas to then put into the system and say, please find connective links, join the dots for me from the data here, the data here, the data here, the data there, to help me draw some conclusions to where the market's going. And then on top of that, I layer in what are the right questions to ask? What are the questions that I should be asking? And then answer those questions with this data sets that we're now pulling from.
Right.
And that to me that's where it's become mind-blowing. I did this. I did this for our report, and I actually will reference that. And I asked it very, very casually, just before we kind of started shooting this, what are the 5 biggest concerns voiced online about the current Miami real estate market, and what questions need answering to address these concerns? So my biggest concerns about the current market, and what are the questions that people would have to get the answers that they need to.
It's not creating anything that you couldn't do on your own.
Absolutely.
You probably would have come up with those same 5 topics, or at least 4 out of the 5. And it's helping you just streamline and formalize your thoughts that are in here and you've known and have been ingrained into you.
It curates it in a way that allows the reader to start to join the dots themselves. And it actually, not only did it give me those 5 points, which is the affordability crisis, the condo market instability, bubble risk and market corrections, the climate change, and finally the declining demands and migratory patterns, it also gave me key questions beyond that. So it's a rabbit hole.
Right.
And I think that you can almost take my reports and you can then put them into ChatGPT, and you can ask it to answer questions based off the data that I've put in those reports. And that allows you to then go down a further element.
Yep.
We kind of went slightly off into the analytical rabbit hole, which is a fascinating area, but we were still going through some of the other tools that we were using. And, in terms of communicating to customers better dialogue, more in tune to what's really going on inside the customer's head. There's an element, those tools that I'd mentioned when we did the talk together, where you're able to really kind of almost have 10 psychology sessions with a person to understand what motivates them. What are the other tools that you're implementing inside for human behavior and anything else?
So I don't really have a lot with human behavior. I don't do too much research unless it's a special meeting. And as I mentioned before, I've just leveraged ChatGPT. I go take their website, take their social media profile, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and I throw all 4 of those links in and say, give me a profile of this person. What would I need to know? What would I know if I had known this person for 5 years?
Yeah.
And just get an idea of what I can do to resonate or build a rapport with them. So I'm not using a specific application for that. I've started playing with the one that you mentioned, Crystal Knows. So I'm pretty intrigued to see how much different the two of them come up with. I'll do A/B testing on those for a little while to get a gauge on what I prefer to do.
Yeah. I think that I use the term beta testing a lot of the time on these things because I think it's important that we have to do our own beta testing on these tools.
And honestly, I think split testing is the way to go about it. Beta testing, you're testing one platform, you're playing with it, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
When you look at multiple competing platforms that do something similar, you're able to see the nuances and what is positive or negative from each one of those. And that's what I'm doing with AI voice right now.
So explain what's the right way to split test? How does that work?
Right now, there are so many scams that are happening in real estate that AI could be really bad in the wrong hands and could even help those scammers do worse damage. That is the scary proposition. For a consumer, if it's a consumer out there that's listening to this and you're speaking with somebody on the phone, before you give any personal identifiable information, before you give them any money, you send anything, speak to the actual person on the phone. Confirm it is who they say they are, and almost meet them in person if you can.
Yeah.
Just to understand where it's going, because there's so much ability to deceive that in the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic to the public.
How are we going to start filtering this stuff?
That's why they keep refining the rules and the regulations and the algorithms on social media channels. Google changes like every 30 to 60 days. They change their algorithm and their formula in which what appears, how results are provided. Google historically had always tried to answer your question by giving you a link to a website to go find your answer.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist anymore. Now you can't even pay to be in that top slot. You've got 3 different sections on Google now. You've got trying to answer your question, leveraging Gemini AI. Then you've got the paid advertisements. Then you've got the organic. Being the number one on the first page of Google for an organic search isn't as powerful as it used to be.
Yeah.
You not only need to be number one, but you need to be answering that question that people are searching for. So the amount of content and the frequency in which you update the information on your website is much more powerful than just sheer traffic on your website. We're all fighting for this quality score to try and answer questions for what people are searching for. That's how you're getting traffic on Google. And that constantly moves based on success rate that Gemini is reading on. If a consumer clicks on this answer, did it answer the question? Did they bounce off of that site? Did they stay there? The longer somebody stays on clicking on your answer, the better your website is going to function and the more people you're going to see. It changes constantly. And I don't know that there is a solution for legitimacy in the future, that it's going to constantly move. And unless you're providing authentic information or genuine updates, it's going to start to fade away and be categorized as AI.
So summing this all up, if you are to take an audience sitting here listening to this, Realtors, and say, outside of ChatGPT, give me the 3 most important AI tools that you must be using over the next, immediately for the foreseeable future, or your business will be, I won't say obliterated, but it's going to massively suffer. What are 3 tools that you believe absolutely you tell your agents you've got to be using these tools? And as a consumer, you want to be asking your agent, are you using these tools?
That's a really hard question because number 1 for me would be ChatGPT. And I know you said outside of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's the obvious one. And then I'm thinking a lot of people almost, now you say the word AI and they're only thinking of ChatGPT.
Correct. It's directly correlated. I know you told me not to, but I'm going to leave ChatGPT in there because as large as the adoption has been within the real estate sector, I don't think the adoption has been as big as it should be. So if you have not dove in to ChatGPT, that is your number 1. That is the best place to start. It's training wheels on your bicycle. That is the safest place for you to go in, play around, and get comfortable. But that's also the baseline of what you can leverage into other products. And I've only been using this for the last 3 or 4 months, but I do really like Gamma, Gamma.app. It's a presentation creator, but it does a lot more than I use it for. I use it for presentation creation, flyers, one-sheets. It also will create your social media stuff, including image caption, hashtags, all of that kind of stuff. But it will help you build websites and web pages. So for a realtor, why is that powerful? Number 1, because they're not web designers. But number two, it helps you take the knowledge that you would be getting out of ChatGPT. You can do it direct in Gamma, but building neighborhood specific or community specific pages or single property websites for listings, especially in the ultra luxury market. You want a specific property website highlighting that property and getting more eyes and analytics on who's actually looking at it. So it's streamlining efficiencies and being able to publish a website, marketing material, handouts, flyers, brochures, things along those lines, presentations. You walk into a new construction build, what do they give you? A sheet and a list of all of the collateral, right? Yeah. They give you a link with all the collateral. ChatGPT and Gamma can separately give you that same piece and put that all together for you.
So give me the cliff notes. That's what it's saying. It's like giving me the shorthand version of like what is basically a massive subject.
Correct. In addition to that, I'm going to say there's two other video ones that I feel should be utilized because people try and edit videos on their cell phones. They use CapCut or whatever it might be. We can't be in the same place and in every place at one time.
Yeah.
So I am a big fan of two different products. One is called Descript, and the other one is called Opus Clip, which takes the long form video and cuts it up into short form content.
Yeah.
Where you'd be sitting there for hours editing your video, you can throw it in there and it gives you 15 different short form clips that you can drag and drop, change captions, wording, all that kind of stuff all ready for you. I do that a lot with my pod, and I think that's very useful.
Can I actually ask you there's one that you shared with me, Perplexity AI.
So Perplexity and Speculo are the two AI voice ones that I am split testing right now. And that's the speed to lead. You have an inquiry come on your website, and within 5 seconds, your phone is ringing. And that's tied into the back end of the CRM, whether it's Lofty, KV Core, Bold Trail, Commissions Inc., whatever you're using, Follow Up Boss, it integrates to all of those. Both of them do. So it calls that person and has an initial conversation, trying to get them onto the phone with the agent who might be doing something else. You can either have it round robin through your team, you can have it go to you directly, whatever. So I'm testing that for a different use case because I'm a non-practicing broker. I'm non-compete. I don't sell. Yeah. I'm mostly focused on operations. That is, for me right now, functioning for recruiting. Okay. If I have somebody inquire and want information about joining my brokerage, they get a call from my AI agent. And that's alternating back and forth between the two of them. Who gets the appointment or who gets me the information that's going to be useful when I have that one-on-one conversation with that person. Those two are really intriguing. I think they're more beneficial for practicing realtors because that's what they were built for. I'm changing their purpose and using a different avenue to reprogram their AI agent for my purpose. And it's interesting to do that because you can either work with a large company where you have to fit into their box, or I'm working with another one, small company started by a realtor focused on satisfying my box. So I can either conform to them or they can conform to me. And that's kind of the one I'm leaning towards. But Perplexity is one of those applications, and I think it is extremely powerful when used the right way.
Beautiful. Well, I think everyone should go and, probably typing it in right now and trying to understand what these different tools are. And I think they're going to spawn more and more and more. One that you didn't mention in the particular genre of analytics, and maybe because is there any tools right now that are good for analytics, or is it still a variation of ChatGPT that we have to use?
I still prefer ChatGPT because I haven't found one that I can trust. So I take the information I put the information into ChatGPT and define how I would like it to analyze it and what type of information I'd like to get back.
Yeah.
Whereas you're kind of guessing or taking a massive set of data inside of another product. You mentioned this, and I've used this one before, likely.ai, right? Identifying potential sellers that could be going to market. Mm-hmm. And there's another one called Trust Scout as well. It's a pretty new startup, and they're doing the same thing. But what's interesting is if you look up a specific market area, they're both looking at two different things. Their algorithms is what you're trusting. And I don't think it's a science that has been perfect.
I still think it's an art. I still think that side of like approaching people is an art. I think the process of analytics is still an art.
Agreed.
And I think that it's not the worst thing you can do if you go out there and you use ChatGPT or use AI, Gamma, and you're going to start asking it to please produce me a report for the Miami real estate market, the Coconut Grove market, Coral Gables market, Pinecrest market, Fort Lauderdale, Boca, Palm Beach, whatever, any market, and you just ask it that one simple question, you are going to get a very bad answer.
Very bad.
If you coach it, if you are the master and you teach it and you train it and you give it the data it needs and you input it correctly and you layer it in, then I think what it will do is it will help you find the dots that need to be joined. And it will make your report far more complete, and it will answer the questions that you need answering because you'll know the questions to ask. And your data will, I think, ultimately be a lot more useful and actionable.
For sure. I don't want to overcomplicate it either. For the general practitioner or the general consumer who's trying to pull information out or use it to analyze data, the question you ask is the important piece. And you don't have to go too deep to get the answer that you're looking for, but it might not be it might not be the Rolls Royce, right? You might get the Lexus or the Mercedes. Yeah. But a lot of times that's more than you really need. So setting the expectation, as I mentioned before, the who, what, how.
Yeah.
Who do I want ChatGPT to be? What do I want you to do with the information I'm giving you? And how do I want to get it back from you? If you answer those three questions in your prompt, in your question to ChatGPT, you will be very happy with the response that comes back. Your only layer on top of that is refining it. Be more detailed, Give me details, be more concise, give me less, simplify. Things along those lines will get you an end result that you can really be happy with and leverage for positive.
I think that's a really nice conclusion to the podcast. I think it all comes beautifully full circle. And I think it all comes back to that original point, which, as we say at the beginning, if you want a better answer, come up with a better question. So make sure that your questions are evolved, that you're using your intelligence in this. And I truly believe that the agents who are going to succeed are the ones who take the time to find the better questions, ask the better questions, research the better questions, and use it as a partner rather than as a replacement. Jonathan, thank you for doing this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I would like to say to everyone out there, if you like this podcast, please do me the favor of following us, because obviously we want to keep producing more content. And more than that, if you have a question for Jonathan, if you have a question for me, please do add it at the bottom. We're not trying to be the omnipotent voice here that knows everything. We're just trying to ask the right questions as well, so that we can know where this evolves. Because we believe that out there, if you want to start asking the questions that you have about the market, that you think are the most relevant, we will take those and I will add those into a blog. And I promise you, I will take what we may perceive as the best 10 questions. Or maybe I'll ask ChatGPT to grade the questions and we will answer them in one big report. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for another episode of the Better Decisions podcast coming soon.